Hi, I'm Troy Smith. I'm a history professor at Tennessee Tech here in Cookeville. And for the last couple of years, I have had the great joy and privilege of being able to help steer a writer's workshop that meets at Foxleaf Books, which is at 24 West Broad here in Cookeville. And it's been a wonderful experience, and I've met a lot of really nice people, a lot of really talented people, like my friend Beth Nelson here, who has a story in one of the anthologies that we did, which is called Love Struck. Actually, what we've been doing the last two or three times out with the workshop is sort of a graduation exercise, is putting together an anthology of short works by people who were in the workshop. And Beth had a story called December Rose in the one that came out in February. It's romance themed for Valentine's Day. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the story?
Sure, Troy. My story is actually a true story. It's the story of my grandmother on my father's side. She remarried at the age of 80 and had reconnected with her high school sweetheart, a man that she had known obviously much younger in life. And they both had married other people, gone on with their lives, had children, grandchildren, and later in life, both of their spouses had passed away. My grandmother had written a book. She was also a writer, and her book, The First 100 Years of Avon Park, Florida, was somehow passed along to Monroe, her high school sweetheart, by a friend, a mutual friend. And when he read it and realized that she was single again, he contacted her, and the old flames rekindled. So they actually eloped, and I thought it was a perfect story for a Valentine's Day edition, because how often do we get a second chance at love in our lives? So it was a very sweet story, and I enjoyed writing it.
That's such a cool story. You have another story upcoming in our next anthology. That anthology will be called Short Tales, Tails, because every story is somehow animal themed. And your story is called Jake, is that right?
Yes, yes. My story is about actually my sister-in-law's dog, and he is about a year and a half old now, a black lab mix, and such an amazing dog. He was rescued from the Kennesaw Mountain State Park near Atlanta, Georgia, as a puppy. And friends of my sister-in-law's had found him and called her. They knew she was looking for a house and thought, what better present to go along with a new house, but to also have a new dog. So she ended up taking him in and then taking him to obedience training, and he is now a therapy dog. And I thought that was kind of an interesting take for any animal, to be able to go into hospitals and nursing homes and work with children and seniors. And he is such a sweetheart, just so gentle. In fact, she has taught him when he meets a smaller human or another smaller animal to make himself small. And she'll just say, Jake, make yourself small. And he will literally lay right down and put his head on his paws. And it's just the most adorable thing. So you had asked us to write a story that either had an animal as a main character or that had an animal in the story somehow. And so I thought about one in particular incident that happened in Cane Creek Park right here in Putnam County. And Jake was up here with Pat. They had just moved up here, and they were walking in the park, and a carload of young children pulled up with their mom, got out of the car, and they were a group of Down syndrome children.
Oh.
And they were having a lot of fun, frolicking in the park. They had been brought there by their sort of a house mother. They obviously must have lived in a group home of some kind. And one of the boys came over and asked Pat, can I walk your dog? And of course, she knew that Jake had been trained, to be gentle. And so she said sure, and she gave him the leash. And she said the look on that boy's face as he walked along with his dog on the leash was just a moment that she will never forget. And when he was done and they came back, the boy looked at her and said, "Can I do that again sometime?" And she said, "Sure." And she goes back to that park all the time, hoping that she will run across that little boy again, because it just meant so much to her and to Jake. He had a great time that day in the park. So I thought that would be an interesting book for me to write, or a story for me to write, and I tried to write it from Jake's perspective. You were teaching us about perspective and writing in first and third person, and I thought, let me try something that'll stretch me a little bit. I have to think like a dog this time around, so hopefully people will enjoy that.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
What led you to join our workshop? Is it something that you had always wanted to do, or is it something that was sort of a new idea to you?
Well, yes, I had two loves growing up. I had a love of travel and a love of reading, and my love of reading grew into a love of writing. When I was in grade school, I won a first ribbon, blue ribbon, for a poem that I wrote about an oak tree, and that was at the Miami-Dade County Fair. And then in high school, I worked in the library. I always read books, loved it, loved writing, wrote for myself mainly. Ended up in a career in travel public relations, which really fed both of my first loves. I got a chance to write all kinds of magazine articles, newspaper articles, brochure copy, newsletters. I even wrote an obituary once. And I also got to travel almost all over the world. I have visited many of the continents, and I feel very fortunate to have had the career that I had, because I had so many opportunities to travel and to meet people and to see the world while I was working. Mm-hmm. And somebody else paid for it, which was even better.
Can't beat that.
But now that I am quote unquote retired, I have really thought more about getting into my writing, and this time around really writing for myself, mm-hmm. Doing projects that it would enjoy. And when I heard about this group here at Foxleaf Bookstore, I thought, oh, this is perfect. I get a chance to interact with other writers. I get a chance to learn from someone who's actually publishing his own books and teaching writing, and I get a chance to try different genres, different writing styles, different types of characters, and really find what fits for me as a writer. And I can't say that I'm there yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Great. And you definitely have some plans for the future about projects that you want to work on.
Yes.
Down the road.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. What has been the most challenging thing about the writing you've done recently, these short stories?
The writing, picking the story idea has been the most challenging, I think, initially. Once I decide what I'm going to write about, then the writing does tend to flow. A lot of times I'll wake up in the morning and half of it will be in my head already written. But then learning how to end the story has been probably the most challenging thing, and really knowing where to end it, when, how to tie up all those loose ends so that you don't leave the reader hanging mm-hmm. at the end. That's probably been the most challenging.
What's your favorite part?
My favorite part,
mm-hmm.
really getting into the mind, the head of the character, hearing the dialogue, being able to write it as I'm hearing it in my own mind. Of course, the first story, being my grandmother, became very easily to me because I have lots of fond memories of my grandmother, and I can still hear her voice in my head, as well as my uncle and some of the other characters in that story. Learning to get into the mind of a dog was a little bit more challenging. And now I'm really looking forward to, I love history. I think that's one reason why you and I probably connected the way we have. But I'm really looking forward to a new project that I'm thinking of doing and writing a short pocket guide type of history to the city of Cookeville. I really want to do something. I've had a number of friends and family move up here. They all say, there's really not a book that I can grab onto that'll just give me a little history about the area that I'm moving to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've started to do a little bit of research on that, and I'm looking forward to writing something that will be a useful guide, not a 600-page authoritative history of the area, but something that the average reader will enjoy looking at and pick up a few tips about the area. So.
No, we look forward to seeing it. So in the meantime, you can read Beth's stories in Love Struck, which is available now at Foxleaf Books and online at your favorite online bookseller. And Short Tales will be out sometime soon. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you all for joining.